The Play Action podcast is fueled by Picasso's Pizza, where every night is pizza night.
The Buffalo Bills have spent a week at St. John Fisher, so we'll go through some of our early impressions of the offense, including crowd favorite Dalton Kincaid.
We will talk about Damar Hamlin's latest breakthrough at training camp and the continuing drama at CB2.
And then we'll shift to what we're looking for moving forward for the rest of camp. The Play Action podcast starts now.
Things are ramping up here at Buffalo Bills training camp. The Bills put the pads on Monday, and we have had some interesting players do interviews the past couple of days. We here on the Play Action podcast are recording again from the lovely dorms in Pittsford, New York. Let's start with offense here on our first segment, Katherine, and give us a few impressions of what you see on offense the past few days.
Yeah, well, to start, you mentioned interesting interviews, and Damien Harris, running back new to the team this season after playing with the Patriots, just loved his media availability this week. It was really insightful. It was really fun, too, where he was kind of, asking people to compliment him more in a very funny way. But he also got a bit into kind of what's going on at running back. He did mention at one point that it doesn't really matter who's in there. I don't know if that's exactly how I would see it, how Ken Dorsey would see it based off the skill sets of these guys. But I think that's more just a testament to, what they're working on right now and trying to get guys on the same page as much as possible. James Cook, though, has looked, I think, solid throughout training camp. Mark, what have you seen from him?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Cook is RB1, but I think Harris is a fascinating guy. I mean, he's a pro. He made a great impression in his interview. I mean, he's just so self-confident, relaxed, great communicator. And, this is a guy who had played for Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, two of the greatest coaches of all time. And he knows how to play. He just knows how to carry himself. I'm going to be fascinated to see, Cook is the RB1, but I'm fascinated by Harris's presence on this team. He was the sixth running back taken in 2019. Devin Singletary, incidentally, was the fifth running back taken in that draft. And Harris gives the Bills a power element, and Harris saw stacked boxes. He saw a lot of 8-man boxes, defensive fronts in New England because defenses weren't that fearful of the New England passing attack with Mac Jones. In Buffalo, he's going to see light boxes, way more light boxes, 6-man defensive fronts than he saw in New England. I'm really interested to see the element he can bring to this team.
Yeah, I've also liked seeing how quickly he's connected with guys across the team, too. We'll talk a little bit more later about Damar Hamlin practicing in pads, but he mentioned Damien Harris as someone that he's gotten close with just over the last stretch. Damien Harris has shouted out Von Miller during the interview as well, too. So he's someone who is
Matt Milano, too, he talked about today.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. A full, shout outs all around the Bills locker room. But so he's really made himself a part of this team quickly from that standpoint. Elsewhere on the offense, I know we've talked about Dalton Kincaid a bunch since he got drafted, but I've been pretty impressed with him throughout training camp. That's someone we're trying to watch more and more. Was that a no?
Yeah, no, I know. No, I would say, yeah. I mean, I hate to overdo it, but you can't not bring it up. He is featured. So, I feel like I should try to temper expectations, but we keep writing about him every day because you can't not write about him. Yeah.
No, and I think there's still the intrigue too of there are still very impressive things that Stephon Diggs can do, but we've seen a lot of phenomenal plays from him. Kincaid, it's more like Bills people here, fans, media, still getting to know him. To see it up close, I think, even like if people have watched highlight reels, just to see what he looks like now with Josh Allen throwing to him. What exactly Ken Dorsey is going to do with all these different guys. So I think there's still that intrigue factor. I agree. We don't want the expectations to get too wild, but I think there's a slight difference between, he's going to achieve X, Y, Z and, it's interesting to see how they deploy him.
Yeah. Yeah, just kind of one more thought on the offense today. We should mention it was a rough day for the offense today. The defense got the best of them by it was a clear TKO for the defense in Tuesday's practice. Now, we should say they were working on 3rd and long, so the defense has the advantage, but the offensive line had trouble. The offense had trouble in 3rd and long against pressure from the defense. I will say I like what I've seen in individual a little bit from backup right tackle Brandon Shell. I think he's looked pretty solid, and I think Osiris Torrance, who worked largely with the ones today, has looked really good versus power rushes. When he latches on, he is powerful, and he gets control of the defender. We haven't seen him work that much against number one lineman, but Osiris Torrance, so far so good, I think.
All right, let's switch over to what we've seen on the defense so far. One of the big battles there is who will play cornerback opposite Tre'Davious White. He's locked in at that spot, doing well, and having a full offseason coming back from his previous ACL tear. But right now, that's a pretty wide open competition still.
Yes, you said it. I mean, I would say Dane Jackson has lined up a little bit more as the CB2, but it's been a real job share. There's no conclusions can be made yet. Kyrie Elam has seen a lot of time. Christian Benford has seen some time with the first unit. Way too early to tell. And we talked to John Butler, Bill's defensive backs coach, and he was really interesting today. He was had a lot of good things to say, talking about Elam and talking about how they want to let people do the things they do best as coaches, right? And the thing that Elam does best is get up close onto receivers and is physical with them, uses his length and physicalness to jam receivers. So it's, and he does that better, if you will, than playing off coverage. Now, he didn't say that. I'm saying that at this point, or still early point in his career. So, it really just makes you wonder, might they do some kind of committee? And if they're playing, the Chargers with a big receiving core, let Elam play more of the snaps. If they got to play off coverage, more off coverage against whoever, the Chiefs or the Dolphins, maybe Dane Jackson gets more of the snaps. It's wide open.
Yeah, let's go through some of what John Butler said and didn't say, because there's not a clear, this guy's the favorite and we want to decide by this date. He said there's no set timeline for when they want to solidify that. I thought it was really interesting how he stressed continuity within games. Last season, we saw a lot of rotation of, someone will be in for 2 series, rotate throughout a game. And, there were injuries at play. They were still evaluating then rookies, Christian Benford and Kyrie Elam, but it continued throughout the year, basically. He kind of swayed away from wanting to continue that, where they want someone locked in for each game. But when talking about this ongoing evaluation process, basically said it'll go throughout training camp, throughout the preseason, and then even kind of was saying during the season, it's still going to be performance-based. To your point, maybe that has to do with matchups in individual games. But it seemed he was a little less firm on the idea of we're going to need one guy locked in for the entire season. Which is just, obviously at any position, if a guy starts to do better or worse during the season, they'll switch people in and out. But I think given how much rotation there was at cornerback last season and never really getting that continuity, it was interesting for me to hear that, it's more, they've narrowed it to game continuity versus season long, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, and I think there's a general feeling that Elam was the number one pick. Just let him go, let him play, give him and let him learn. The issue with that, and I think if the Bills were a rebuilding team or a middle of the road team, that's exactly what would happen. So what? He gave up a couple touchdowns today. You know what I mean? But not, but they're not in that position. They need every win. So yeah, and when the prospect of rotating every 2 series like last year was brought up, he said, he didn't rule it out, but he, like you said, he mentioned, hey, but if you do that now, like the guy, it loses a little bit. Well, the guy made this move on me on this route the previous series, and you don't have the feel for that when you're in and out of the lineup every 2 series or every 1 series. So it was a good point. And it leads us to believe they might not announce an answer. Who knows? They may keep the Jets guessing. They may take it right. I don't think we're going to have an answer soon.
No, last season it was publicly a game time decision. I don't know what exactly internally they decided, but 2 days before the season opener against the Los Angeles Rams, it was still too early to say, per Sean McDermott at the time. Elsewhere on the defensive backs, a big storyline this week was Damar Hamlin practicing in pads for the first time since he went into cardiac arrest in January. He spoke the same day that that the team put on the pads, he did as well, and was saying how he's still processing thousands of emotions.
Pretty much lost my life playing the sport. You know what I'm saying? So to come back and do it all over again, it's all over the place. You know what I mean? But I'm rooted in my faith. I'm rooted in the love that I received from my family, my teammates, and the love all around the world.
There is a small bit of trepidation from remembering what he went through, but also he wants to be playing. He wants to make plays. Tackling is something that comes naturally to him. So, he's just trying to process feeling all those things at once. But Monday seemed like a good day for him. Had family here, seemed comfortable out there. Tuesday, I would say even more so. He seemed looser on the field, dancing a little bit more. I think just kind of getting that first day past. He was honest when we talked to him Monday that it's not just going to be, I put him on once and I'm good for the rest of my life. It's probably, there will be some weird feelings every day. But I still, from watching him back-to-back days, it seemed like today there was a little more joy in his play, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. He's another impressive, he's 23, 24 years old. He's not afraid to be a bit introspective in talking about it all. He's extremely mature beyond his years. And you get the feeling that everybody's rooting for him. He and Taylor Rapp did get the chance to be the number one safeties on Tuesday and virtually all of Tuesday's practice. So that was good for them. Hamlin had an interception on the sideline, returned for the touchdown. I felt like the play was blown dead by a sack in the backfield, but nevertheless, it was a good moment for the safeties.
A fun celebration for sure. And, like you were saying before, kind of his vulnerability, transparency on things, I found it really interesting how he said, I think at least twice in his press conference when he was not coming back on Monday, but playing on Monday, just saying how there are times he wishes he could do this whole return process like fully in private without having it all in the spotlight. But
anybody can relate to that. Yeah.
And instead he's kind of embraced what the reality is, where he wants to show people this is a challenge that I'm going to try to overcome in the public eye. And maybe, most people can't relate to his situation, obviously, but maybe people can take those lessons and say, here's how I'm also going to overcome something. So I think on top of just what he's doing on the field was really powerful to hear that insight from him too.
and with players rooting for him on the interception. Trey White had picked up a ball laying on the ground and sprinted down the sideline with him. So I actually had to come up to you and say, who intercepted that pass? Because they were both had balls sprinting side by side down the sideline. So the players love seeing him make plays. So he's it's a good week for Damar Hamlin. Training camp rolls on here at St. John Fisher University as the Bills keep practicing and build up toward the first exhibition game against the Colts on August 12th at home. Let's talk a little bit now, Catherine, in our third segment about things we're looking for here leading up to the first exhibition.
Yeah, there's still a lot to kind of watch. They'll have a scrimmage at Highmark Stadium in between now and then as well. We'll be there fully covering it. I'm interested to kind of see a little bit more out of some of the receivers who are not Stephon Diggs or Gabe Davis. I don't mean more in the sense that they haven't impressed during training camp, but just, the more chemistry they build with Josh Allen, the different ways they're used in the offense. I think that's kind of a under the radar exciting thing to watch, just in that it's not necessarily like a competition in the same sense of CB2, of middle linebacker, of things we'll get into there, of just how will they use these guys differently throughout the season, getting a better feel for that.
I agree. That's a low key. I mean, that it isn't as big as CB2 or MLB1, but slot one is a big battle, and it's a big worry, I think. Are the Bills good enough at wide receiver after Stephon Diggs? We don't know the answer. That's something. Is somebody going to separate themselves in the slot, whether it's Khalil Shakir, Trent Sherfield, or Deontay Hardy? I wrote a story for the Buffalo News about the fact that the Bills really have been lacking for 3 years in yards after the catch, and who can make a little more happen yards after the catch? We talked to Deontay Hardy. He talked about that. He really is a guy who could add some supercharged element after the catch in the middle of the field. The question is, how many balls is he going to see? How much of a role is he going to carve out? I still see him as wide receiver 4 in this, but we'll see if he can make himself more than that. And then, on defense, the middle linebacker battle continues to be fascinating.
Yeah, maybe under the radar wasn't exactly what's going on with receivers, but I think middle linebacker is more just a full question mark at this point. It's been interesting seeing kind of some of the things outside of just the more tangible that they're evaluating there. Communication's going to be so key. So voice inflection, how guys are taking part of that part of the job on. So I think there's a lot of really interesting factors there. After having Tremaine Edmonds at that spot for so long. Similar to cornerback 2, I don't think they're in a rush to decide it, but I think they'd want to solidify that a little bit earlier, just, again, to get the full defense from a communication standpoint on the same page.
I agree with that, and I think there's much less chance that there's any kind of committee rotation there at middle linebacker like there could be at CB2. I still think Terrell Bernard, by virtue of being a third-round pick, I'd call him the slight favorite. A guy who I thought had a really good Tuesday practice, Balen Spector, 7th-round pick. The guy he's a good football player. He played a ridiculous number of snaps for Clemson in his career over 4 years. He had a hurry. He broke up a pass. He's a little better athlete than you think. He ran a 4.6, which was almost as fast as Bernard. I have a little soft spot for Spector because I view him as a really good player. But whether the Bills would have the guts to pick him over a guy who's got more upside, arguably, and Spector, we'll have to see. But wide open there, a 3-way wide open race.
Yeah, outside of that, they've been pretty decent, avoiding injuries so far this training camp. That's always a big storyline, important to get everyone to the season.
All Bills fans knock on wood on that. Yep.
Yes. Give you a second for that. But yeah, I would say some of those defensive battles are the ones I'm most interested in moving forward.
I thought Shaq Lawson has looked really good. Guy's making the team. The guy he beats backup linemen routinely. I think Leonard Floyd also has been working as the DE, the starting DE, and he's looked pretty good too. So he's a big key. So lots of actually position battles here on defense.
Yeah, so we'll be keeping on top of all that news, podcasting throughout training camp and writing everything on buffalonews.com as well. But make sure you're subscribing wherever you get your podcasts and keep following along during our weeks at the dorms in camp.
Treat your team to the most flavorful pizza on game day at Picasso's Pizza. 4 great Western New York locations: Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Picasso's. We are Buffalo's Pizza since 1980. Order online today at picassospizza.net.